When I was in middle school, that's when we got the email after waiting 15 years
Mm.
at first. Like, you need to understand the culture, you need to understand the language. So there is a huge gap.
Have everything ready at your interview.
All right.
All right, everybody. This is Sharjeel. Welcome back to Manzil Bound. Today with us we have Mohsin. Mohsin, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Well, hello everyone. My name is Sayed Mohsen Mirmobini. I go by Mohsen. Uh, I was born in Tehran, Iran, and I moved to US at the age of 14. I went to Folsom High School, and then post that I went to UC Berkeley. I studied mechanical aerospace engineering. And after I joined Intel Corporation, I am an engineering manager as of now, and I have actually finished my master's degree in electrical engineering.
Good. Awesome. Thank you for the introduction, Mohsin. So,
Sure.
when so you said you were born and raised in Tehran, right? When did you come to the US?
So I finished my freshman year high school in Iran, and in the summer, the gap in the summer between your freshman year, sophomore year, that's when we actually traveled to the United States.
Mhm. Okay, so tell us about your high school experience in Iran.
Um, my high school experience was much different than in the US. It was a lot more complicated. You would take a lot more courses. You actually take 14 courses in a year, and most of them are advanced. So you actually finish differential equation, organic chemistry, and all those stuff that you finish in college in US in high school. So it was
Yeah.
much different. I had a lot of really good close friendship, but it was time for a change. So
Good.
then we came to the US. Yeah.
Good. So what visa category did you come to the US on?
So I'm gonna go over the whole story.
Sure.
My uncle immigrated to US about 50 years ago, and he actually applied for my family before I was born. And after a year I was born, they added me to the case. So it was a family visa. He applied for my father, which would be his brother. And at the age of 13, when I was in when I was in middle school, that's when we got the email after waiting 15 years to
Mm,
come for the interview. And obviously, there's no embassy,
yeah.
U.S. embassy in Iran. So that's
So
when we
this was
traveled
back
to
in early
2013.
2000s?
2013.
2013.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's when we traveled to Ankara, Turkey, to do
Mm-hmm.
our interview process. So in Turkey, for your interview process, you have to do a bunch of medical examination and vaccinations. So
Mm-hmm.
one tip I would have for people is that to have all of your medical records, especially your vaccines, because they charge you a lot in those countries. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
there's a special doctor that is trusted by the embassy. We did our medical stuff, and then we went for the interview, and that's where there was a lady who actually spoke Farsi. She was a Caucasian lady, but she spoke Farsi fluently. And she interviewed us and asked for the professional background of my parents and what are the plans when they come to US and how they're going to make money and sustain their life. And post that interview, it took a year because I have to review it. They have to review your family background.
Interesting.
And after a year, that's when they're like, hey, come back to Turkey,
Uh-huh.
grab your visas. Pretty much you give them your country's passport. So my case was Iranian
Mm-hmm.
passport, and they stamp. There's not a stamp. It's like they print your green card on that.
Okay.
Your yeah, and then
Interesting. So you said in 2013 you basically went for your interview in Ankara in Turkey, right? And
yes,
Iran shares the border with Turkey?
yes. So Turkey is
Okay.
the northwest neighbor of Iran.
Yes. So how was your interview experience like? How long was the interview? What kind of questions did they ask, if you remember?
I vaguely remember, but the interview is actually pretty long. It's interesting because my dad he wants to be extremely prepared, so he had a copy of anything in our life. Like his briefcase was like the copy of everything. And it actually worked out because they tell you a lot of information. He's like, you need this in the website, but it's so vague because they don't tell you about half of the information you actually need to bring. So if my
Correct.
dad wasn't paranoid and had all the documentation, the interview would have gone
Mm-hmm.
horribly wrong. So thank God he had a copy of everything. Even
I
though when you
agree.
mail them or you fax them, everything gets lost. So as a tip, have a copy
Yeah,
of everything. And
I
then
agree. And I think I want to stress on this point. This is a really important point. have everything ready at your interview. Don't rely on the fact that just because you fax them or email them that they're going to have it. And
No,
not everybody has a dad like Mawson, but so if you guys need like step-by-step guidance, please visit Rawana.com. Thank you. That's an
yes,
important point, Mawson. Continue,
of
please.
course. And uh, obviously, I'm sure Shakil is going to help you guys with this. Is that it's not a normal copy. The copy that my dad is that it has to go to your foreign ministry or like your government. There's a stamp on it that says, "Hey, this copy is same as the original uh, papers." On it. Anyway, interview process was about 2 hours. They go in details. They're like, if you have any military background, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
or what are you professional and what did you study? So they will ask all that detail, like what did you study, what did your parents study, which would be my grandparents, and what are your plans? So basically, what they're looking for you, this is what I got from that interview is that, hey, are you just coming to US just to sit around, collect benefits, or actually going to be a successful citizen who's going to benefit and improve the country? That's really important to have a plan. Just don't say like, oh, once we get to US, we're going to figure it out. Actually, you should figure it out before you go to the interview, not even you come to the US. So it would be nice. We had a whole detailed plan of like, hey, the kids are going to do their education. With my professional, my parents' background, they were highly educated. It was a lot easier for them to get a job. But like, hey, we are going to work on our profession, and we actually did our research. There's this many jobs in the city we're going to move in, so we think there's a high chance for us to get a job. And with the grades that our kids are getting, they're going to be successful in their school. So having that whole plan in detail actually surprised the person who was interviewing us. And I'm sure company is going to help you guys to prepare for that interview. But that was the whole prospect. Like the whole idea was for the interviewer to get a feeling that these people have a plan and they're not going to be a burden for the country rather than they're going to
Got it.
improve the country.
Got it. Good. Thank you. I think this is very important for the viewers to know that you should definitely prepare for the interview and do your due diligence. Good. So, and then you said once the interview was over, then you came back and then it took them 1 year to basically go over the interview and then they reached out to you, be like, hey, come back, uh your visa is going to be stamped, and then you go back to collect your visas.
Yes, sir. So basically, for Iranians especially, if there's a mandatory military practice that you have to do, since my dad did it 50 years ago, even before the revolution, still it takes a long time for them to do the pull up the records and all that. And once that's set, they just want to see everything is legitimate to your interview, what you answered.
Mm-hmm.
And once that comes, since there's no embassy again, you have to go back to the countries. So they have a couple of embassies that you can go to: Turkey, Armenia, and Dubai. These are the designated for Iranian people. So once you go to those places, once we went back to Ankara, we gave them our passport and they printed the visa that we
Good.
could use to come to the US. And from them,
Good.
as soon as you have that stamp, you can literally get a ticket at Ankara to come to US, or you can come back, grab your luggage, and go, which was the
Good.
case for us.
Good. Awesome. So let's say now when you were flying for the first time to come to the US, how was your experience at the port of entry with the customs?
I remember it was extremely stressful. I'll say this. We got to JFK and San Francisco. It's extremely busy. They make you wait a long time. We were there for like 5, 6 hours. They go over the process. They ask you questions that are random, and there's no translators there. Like it's
Mhm.
hard to grasp understanding what they want from you. So if you have a representative there, it would be nice. But pretty much, you just want to see if everything is legit. And since you're planning to move your whole life to a new country, just make sure you obey the laws of what you need to bring to that country, like in your luggage. Don't bring anything surprising or that might question them. But that was it. And my uncle had his friend to pick us up from the airport. And then we went to his house for about 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, we were able to rent our own apartment. And I remember it was in July. So we got to the US in June, mid-June. And then we had our own apartment by July 1st. And then pretty much
Good.
life after that, yeah.
Good. Nice. And then you also mentioned that your higher education was at one of the, top university, which is Berkeley. So tell us about your experience, coming from Iran and then coming to the US and then getting into Berkeley and studying engineering. How was that like?
So I want to emphasize this for immigrants, especially folks who come from Middle East or Asia. We have a gift. The gift is the discipline that we go through in our countries. Is the constant pressure and the discipline that is on us to always care about our education, and we should rely on that and take advantage of that because when we come to the US, we are foreigners at first. Like you need to understand the culture, you need to understand the language. So there is a huge gap. However, we have that gift. We are disciplined. We can get the stuff done. Because school here, especially in high school, is much easier than the high school we went through. So I was able to use that leverage to get on track and later on being able to go to community college. And once I was finished my community college, to transfer to number one public university in United States, which is UC Berkeley, and getting into one of the competitive majors, which was mechanical engineering. And that experience was really interesting. Being in such environments that at first you're in high school, you're like, oh, you're one of the top students, and then you come to college. But once you get there, everybody's the top. Like everybody are the geniuses, and
Yes.
you might not be in the top anymore. You might be in the bottom, trying to battle your way through. But it was an interesting experience, and I love my time in Berkeley, and
Good.
it was it paid off. All the
Good.
hassle that I had to go through with immigration. It's not an easy thing. I tell people who's like, immigrating is not an easy task, but it definitely worth it if you try your best. At first, it's
Good.
not easy. There's economic issues, there's like
Mm-hmm.
language barriers and all that. But when I got to Berkeley, it was one of the steps that I was like, oh, it's worth it for me to move to the US.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point, and I think you're an example of, if you work hard and you immigrate, then, you could go to the best university in the world and then work at the top companies in the world. So I think as you are somebody who follow or prospective Iranians can, of course, look up to. So that's good. So tell us about your experience at Intel. What are you doing here? How has your experience been like working at one of the probably the best known company in the computer science?
So pretty much after Berkeley, I was able to get a job at Intel Corporation as a process module development engineer, and we actually worked on the cutting edge technology. Starting at first, I was working on 5 nanometer, then 3 nanometer, and currently with the latest technology, which is 18A. I did engineering for 2 years, and I was able to get a engineering manager position, which I have a team of 10 people right now, 10 engineers under my team. And it's really interesting working with one of the brightest, smartest people I've ever seen. And it gives you perspective that how much can change. And when I look back, it's in 2 months, it will be 11 years since I moved from Iran. And how much how much I've been able to progress in my career and climb the ladder, if I put it that way.
Right.
Uh, it's a blessing. It's a blessing, definitely.
Definitely, definitely. And again, I want to make this point that I feel like prospective individuals from Iran who are looking to migrate to the US can look at this interview and look at you and, get motivated and inspired that, if you can do it with help and proper guidance, they can do it too. Awesome. Well, Mohsen, thank you very much. I think at the last, I always ask everybody if you have any tips and guidance for people who are in the journey that you were doing 10, 11 years ago. What would you want to tell them based on your experience?
The most important thing is that if you come to the US with the intention of living in the US, making sure you have the best interest of United States. Your goal is to become a US citizen and have that interest. And one thing is that US, there's a lot of opportunities. A lot of people say that the American dream is gone, but I would argue against that. There's a lot of opportunities. There's the best universities in the world in the United States, the best companies in the world in the United States. So definitely you people that you're planning to immigrate to US, you still have a chance. You have a great opportunity to being able to succeed of on what you guys are doing. The best thing is that plan. Planning is the most important thing. Having a short plan, medium plan, and long term. It would be your first 6 months in the US, then your first 5 years, and then your 10 year. So having that plan is really important. And obviously have plan A, B. If the A doesn't work, you can jump to B.
Got it.
Planning is really important. And one thing I would say is that if you try hard, it will pay off in the United States. And that's the biggest
Agreed.
thing that. And obviously, there's other aspects, financial and other things that I can give tips on. But if you get your education, everything will come along.
Good. No, I agree. I think I agree with that, that if you, work hard enough and you being a little smart about your finances and your planning, you could definitely make it. I agree with you 100%. So, and at Rahwana, we're also trying to build a post-arrival setup plan. So for immigrants who are coming to the US for the first time, we're trying to give them a plan similar to what you mentioned so that they know what to do as soon as they step into the US. Well,
Um,
Mawson, it was yeah, go ahead.
I was going to add this as well. It's really important. I had my uncle and we had our friends, but it's company is such a blessing for people is because it's going to be an expert who knows the answers and who can guide you guys to your process of immigrating. And that's really important because if you're coming here blindly, you can lose all the savings that you're bringing, or you can fail in the process. So it's really important having an expert along you and with you, shoulder by shoulder, coming in the steps. So it's definitely a great thing you guys are doing.
Awesome. Thank you, Mawson. Really appreciate your time. I think audience will definitely benefit from this interview. Thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.
Good luck.